All right, Channel Surfers, we are back for part 2 of Titan, the OceanGate Submersible documentary on Netflix. This is wild.
It's mind-blowing.
There's so much to think about. Everything that we find out opens up another question.
A lot of questions.
Well, let's go ahead and dive on in on our part 2.
Remote reality, yeah, that's the key. Unlocking stories wild and free. With the host, side by side. Channel surfers, let's ride.
So 5 years before the first expedition, we're going to see the hull tests because there's no bad testing according to Stockton. What happens at these hull tests, Dee?
They put it under these tests to see how far they can go before it implodes.
And they're trying to see if this carbon hull is going to work because this is new. Usually these ships are made of titanium, which that's a strong metal. For example, there's certain industries where if you can be injured, you're not supposed to have titanium rings because they can't cut them off. What is the difference between titanium and this brand new idea, carbon fiber?
Carbon fiber is basically a bunch of strings that can snap.
Yes, strings made of carbon
that are held together by glue.
So it's like my preschool son's little glue and paste project. I wonder if they used any like noodles, like different colored noodles. That would be really cool.
I don't know. But he's wanting to use the carbon fiber because it's much more affordable. It's not as heavy, and he can build many of these to put everywhere.
Yeah. So the biggest costs that Stockton says are involved in building a submersible are the materials and the mobilization, how you get it, this big, heavy titanium sub from point A to point B. So if it's made out of carbon fiber, like airplanes, like they do at Boeing, then you've solved a big cost of it. They're trying to make this efficient. 90% of the cost, they said, goes into the materials to build it and to move it, which blows my mind. Like when you think about the cost, you're also thinking about the cost of all of these experts who they did take reduced salaries, but that's still a substantial amount.
Right.
Because they hired people from Boeing.
Yeah, they brought in engineers from Boeing.
And Boeing, they created the concept design for the vessel. Now, there is a Boeing in Charleston. We have a Boeing plant, and my friend lives basically like they've got a lot of property over by the airport and right across the street from my friend. The house that sits across the street behind that house is Boeing property. So one day, sorry, sidetrack, Boeing story, kind of. My friend found a dead cat outside and went and dropped it off at Boeing's property. Just took it across the street and he thought the cat was sleeping, but it was dead. Okay, this is a really sad story. This is worse. Sorry. Anyway, so yeah, Boeing, they decided to put this thing together, and maybe they just make a lot of the airplanes, but I feel like we're always hearing about Boeing airplanes going down. Maybe they're just like the primary designer of those. Anyway, so game plan, we're gonna glue together some carbon strings and see if it can hold up like titanium because carbon fiber is strong. And they're running these tests on smaller holes. They got these little test holes. You said they were, I thought the size.
Yeah, I thought they said they were about a third of the size.
So let's say that somebody comes sniffing around with all these questions about, oh, is that safe? This doesn't sound safe. How are you going to protect the safety? What's the solution?
You install acoustic monitoring clips in
the
there.
Heck does that mean?
Well, apparently when it reaches any points in the water that it might start snapping those strings, these acoustic monitoring system can hear that and let them know that, hey, we need to stop and go back up to safety.
You're telling me we're just going to shove a bunch of microphones in there so we can hear if these strings start snapping?
That was what they thought.
Huh. And they also thought, well, this will give us time to come up and not have a problem. Okay. So I'm thinking this isn't safe. And look, I don't scuba dive. I live near the coast, so I know a little bit about it, but you can't just immediately and quickly get out of an underwater situation. You have to give yourself time to depressurize. That's actually, I mean, that's a scuba diving risk. If you've ever watched Frasier, Kelsey Grammer, he lost his brother that way. The guy went scuba diving and he came out of the water too fast and it killed him. So, I mean, that's kind of, I thought that was like basic knowledge that this stuff starts snapping. You can't just like jump back up immediately to get out of the water.
I don't know. I don't know what their reasoning is on it.
I mean, that's why Stockton was saying the strength of the vessel, that's the number one thing. They can accommodate for extra oxygen, extra food. They can find ways to survive. The biggest risk are these things snapping. And he's giving this false sense of security by saying, or at least in my opinion, by saying, yeah, like we hear it snapping, we can come back up. Yeah, but they didn't have time to come back up the last time. Maybe they heard the snapping beforehand. I don't know. Or maybe that first snap just took them out. But yeah, that's wild. We're talking titanium versus string.
Yeah, it's so irresponsible.
Especially to rush through this project.
Mm-hmm.
He needed the financial backing. It was the first thing I said is, how is he going to pay for this? He wasn't thinking about that. He has never had to worry about paying for anything. Just assumed I don't have to worry about this either. Man, did that sink?
They gave a great analogy of the carbon fiber. Yeah, they explained that skis are made out of carbon fiber and you can put pressure on them, you can hear them crack, but it's not going to tell you when it's going to snap.
Right. You're going to hear the crickety cracks and then it will snap. But the only difference is you're up a mountain at that point. You can just throw off your ski and walk down versus being in the middle of the ocean. But okay. So the question is, at what point do we withdraw? When do we pull out? Boeing came up with a map which showed, certain death a little bit farther down than the Titanic. So this was part of the testing, was to see, where is this going to be no longer a safe zone? How far can we push it? But it was not consistently snapping at the same spot.
It was different areas of PSI every time.
Sometimes it was shorter. Like on the third expedition, that was a shorter depth than the first expedition. So this was not consistent. And I mean, if it were me, if first snap, get your butt out of there.
Mm-hmm.
You're going in knowing that there are going to be snaps, that you're going down in a hole that will be breaking. It's just making sure you get up before it completely breaks.
Terrible. That's terrible. That's terrible thinking.
Do you think if the passengers realized this, they would have taken that risk?
I think that some of them, because like that one guy said, they were just so passionate about the Titanic that they probably would have taken the risk. But then there were others that I would say, definitely the son. I think mom would have said, no, that's too big a risk. The dad probably would have said, no, that's too big a risk.
You also had a bunch of expeditions that had done it before. This wasn't Titan's first expedition, but that can't be a sign of safety if on the first expedition you go deeper and the second test you're getting a shorter distance and every test is different. And also, you don't know what snapped on the one before it. So there's just so many factors here. This just sounds like a really bad idea. If you put something in and it starts snapping, abort mission. This is a financial failure. It is time to come up with a different plan.
I agree.
This is stupid.
I agree with that too. I wish I could be dumb and rich, not just dumb.
No, man. And it's not like they weren't warned. They got a letter from Boeing saying there's a risk that this thing's going to implode before you get to the 4,000 feet you need to get to for the Titanic. And is this just a little tiny risk? Just nothing I should worry about?
No, it said significant risk.
Significant. And then it says be careful and use caution. How about don't do this, abort mission?
Yeah, they were just trying to cover their ass. They wanted to make sure that they had the memo that went to Stockton that said this is a significant risk of failure.
I guess if they were like done work, they wouldn't want Stockton to ask for a refund.
Mm-hmm. Or blame them.
Wonder if he was paying them to say it was good regardless, or to not put the kibosh on it. Interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised he was willing to.
By a congressman.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could be the John for the congressman and they could turn tricks anyway.
Tony Neeson, he's asked, did you make all of these engineering decisions?
Yeah, I mean, he's the director of engineering, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. But he said, no, I didn't make all of them.
He made some of them, though, but who made most of them?
He says Stockton made most of them.
Because that guy would just make you bow down to him. He's basically going to keep pushing until he gets his way. He was arrogant. I mean, he was an engineer degree from Princeton. He wasn't a great student. He bought that degree from Princeton, but he thought, I paid for that degree. I am more qualified than this director. It just shows you that Tony Nielsen, the director of engineering, he was used just to make people feel safe, that he had experience and he had expertise. He just didn't feel like he could speak up.
That's sad.
What a scam.
Yeah. Sounds like Stockton's a big bully.
He just thinks he knows everything. And he's like, I got this. I didn't do great, but it's Princeton and I got the degree. So
yeah, I can't figure out if he thinks he knows everything or he just wants it so bad he doesn't care what it takes to get there.
It's like, you know what? Yeah, well, he wants that big swinging dick.
That's what I was thinking.
So they've done their little micro testing, and now let's take our first voyage. We're not going to the Titanic. We're going to something a little bit closer to the coast. This is the Andre Doria shipwreck. And Lockridge is going to take down 4 mission specialists because he's the director of operations. But what happens on the day of the dive?
Stockton decides that he's going to pilot the submersive down to the Andrea Dora.
And at first, he just kicks the director of operations out. He's like, nope, sorry, Lockridge, get out of here.
You're not doing this. He is able to convince Stockton to at least include him.
Lockridge,
yeah.
So Lockridge gets to go on the mission. But who gets to play with the PlayStation controller? Stockton. It's like he's throwing a temper tantrum about who gets to play the video game.
Well, he makes a big boo-boo.
He does. And David finally has to say, hey, give me that controller. David Lockridge, he's like, give me the controller. Stockton gives it to him. He gets him out of the jam. And Stockton says, thanks, I owe you one. But he doesn't really act like that from then on.
Yeah, he starts cutting David out of everything. He's no longer included in emails. David is trying to talk to the board of directors, to everybody there that will listen about his concerns. He
stops talking to him and starts not telling the director of operations about the operations, which David Lockridge is like, this is wrong. And he says, this is wrong.
Yeah, he says, I'm seeing every part coming in here, and there's an issue with every part that comes in.
Every single part. So the directors on this project, they aren't even on the same page necessarily. We've got David Lockridge, the director of marine operations, who doesn't have any experience with carbon fiber, but he said with an untrained eye, this stuff looks like Swiss cheese. This does not look sturdy. He keeps pushing for certification. This needs to be certified. This needs to be certified. And he would go to Tony Nielsen, who is the director of engineering, with his concerns, what kind of concerns did he have besides the Swiss cheese?
His other concern was the engineering. They were hiring straight out of college. Like, these are brand new college graduates with engineering degrees, no experience.
Tony Nielsen's like, you might be hungover the next day, but Bo, come on down here. You got a little bit of knowledge about engineering. Let's slap this thing together as fast as we can.
And they did. They were slapping it together as fast as possible.
And they were excited. They were like, yeah, this is cool. These college students, they're on this. They're going to have big swinging ticks too. If they can pull this off, they have no experience in the field, but shoot, we're going to make a submarine and make it fast. And look at my big old, the biggest problem with this entire project is Stockton Rush's ego.
I agree. Once you start something, you have to take accountability for it. And he doesn't want to do that.
Especially when you're the one that's making the decisions. You basically have people that you're hiring to make the decisions, but you're cutting out their authority. You're basically just cutting them out of things if you don't like what they're doing, and you're making all the decisions. So once this project was failing, and it was something that would fail from the start, the carbon fiber hull, this was not working from the start. That's why they kept going, and they didn't stop the project and switch to something different because of pride, because Stockton Rush was too proud to say this was a bad idea.
And it cost people their lives. That's what's so unfortunate and sad about it.
I mean, to be fair, they did sign a waiver, but
I know.
they fell for it. This is like a scam. This is like a scam. He's showing the appearance of authority. He's getting these names. Hey, French Navy guy, come on down here for free and go on a bunch of missions with me. And let's just tell everybody that, hey, you're you're important. Yeah, this is wild. And you can say whatever you want, but you're signing that contract saying everything's in this contract. I understand all this bad stuff can happen, but you've heard all of these things. You've heard it's been successful before. You're not thinking about, or maybe you don't even know about the fact that in the tests, it wasn't getting to the same depth every time. It's just popping at random spots. This guy was just very cocky. He thought he knew it all. He didn't. That's why he had to have people that actually had authority to have his back to make it look like they were making the decisions, because he doesn't have that authority and knowledge. I don't know. I guess he wanted the credit for it. I guess he didn't want somebody else taking the credit for his idea.
He's going to get a lot of credit when it's all said and done.
Well, they're giving him credit now. Then, they needed to find some ways to cut corners. They were running out of funding. Now, he doesn't want to admit that he made a bad financial mistake, and he's never had to worry about finances before because of generational wealth. So what cost can we cut? Well, we've already figured out this workaround where we have paying mission specialists coming on to help with the project, and we don't need a third-party safety certification for that. We haven't been in trouble for that yet. So, maybe we just keep doing that. What you think?
Yeah, that's exactly what he does.
Yeah, why not? And he decides to disclose this plan at a lunch with Rob McCallum. And this is where McCallum says, no, dude, this is not what we talked about. This was supposed to be certified for safety. I'm out. Seas.
Yeah, he's done washing his hands of it.
It may not have just been cutting costs, but the project could have been cut. Every single person was telling Stockton Rush, get the certification, get the safety certification. They knew there were problems in the testing, but if you can't get the certification, then all of this time, all of this money that these investors, these mission specialists have put into the project, how do you get it back to them? He didn't have the money to do it himself. He had to have these paying customers. So he gets sued. He loses all of his family generational wealth. What a pickle. So yeah, you know what? It's been working this way. We hadn't been barked about for safety. Let's keep going. Now, I wonder if he was thinking, all right, let's just get back to where we're breaking even, or if he's still going for that big swinging deck.
I think he's still going for the big swinging deck.
Because it's not about making sure these people get their money back and then saying, all right, this was a bad idea, abort mission. It's about having that big old schlong.
This is ego.
This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the director of marine operations, David Cridge, he's been telling them, we need to get these safety operations done. We need to get this third-party testing. But we all know who's in charge here.
Yeah, Stockton's not going to do that. He's already said. And he's already lost one employee because he said that.
And Hawkridge is worried. He has verbally told Stockton about his concerns, but it's at the point where he feels like they're playing Russian roulette by putting people on this submersible, which who knows at what point it's going to implode.
Yeah, that's what all of their tests have shown.
So he does his own certification. It's internal, so it's not the certification that they would need for passengers, but without being asked, he goes and takes pictures and looks over the submersible on his own and writes a really nice email pointing out his concerns, because as the director of maritime operations, Lockridge is the one responsible if things don't turn out well.
Yeah, so he composes an email with all of his findings.
Yeah, you can't show that you are concerned about it if you don't have it in writing, but an email definitely can prove that there are concerns.
Yep, he sends it out to other coworkers at 11:30 at night, and the next day, Stockton calls a team meeting.
Yep, emergency meeting. Come on down, Mr. Lockridge. He's not happy. He's mad.
He's not. He. When did you start having these concerns?
That's what he asked him, and he knows good and well that these concerns have been vocalized to him. And he's doing this meeting on recording, so we actually get to hear it. And I think that Lockridge is being very respectful. He is de-escalating the situation. And you can tell that Stockton Rush is just mad. He doesn't care what Lockridge has to say.
No, he basically just says, you can just go fuck yourself.
Pretty much.
You're fired.
You can look like an idiot by saying, well, when did you first have these concerns? And Lockridge says, well, this is the first time I've put them in writing was yesterday. In other words, I've been expressing this to you verbally, you big old dum-dum, but I put them in writing for the first time yesterday. I thought that was interesting that he specified in writing.
He was smart to say that.
Very smart. Then Lockridge says, look, this is new. I know that all kinds of people in the industry, they're all saying that it's safe except you. But then he contradicts that by saying that all the people in the industry might think he's crazy, but this is like his new religion. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth.
He's not making a lot of sense.
No, like everybody but you thinks this is fine, but everybody thinks I'm crazy. Okay. And the people that are in the meeting, they don't want to lose David. They know that this man is valuable. They need him on the team. And David says, well, I don't think that's an option.
Mm-mm. And they have concerns for themselves now as well after watching what's happened to David.
Absolutely. Because then we go to Tony Nielsen, the director of engineering, and he learned a lesson. When David was cut from the team, he learned that, what did he learn? What's he supposed to do?
Well, he learned that Stockton doesn't care to drop $50,000 to ruin somebody's life.
What the heck does that even mean?
I don't know, but that would be a scary thought for someone still working for this man.
That seems pretty cheap. Like, is he talking about a hit?
Maybe in the industry, like you'll never work here again or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I guess he thinks he has that big swinging deck, so he's going to swing it around, knock somebody out once he's Mr. Carbon Fiber Sub. But Tony Nielsen also learns everybody just needs to keep quiet. I got to make sure my team isn't questioning him. I mean, really, the way that Stockton was operating, he was the one operating the whole thing. It didn't matter. The experts were just a fiction in this company. It was just something to make people feel like he had the authority behind it, like things were safe, even though really it was just all Stockton coming up with this.
Frightening. And Tony Neeson says he recognizes something else.
What's that?
He says that Stockton is either a sociopath or at the very least a narcissist.
The more we know. Now, he doesn't claim to have degrees in psychology or anything, but he knows something's up. He knows this is not good. It just surprises me that these people aren't pulling out.
I don't know if they think they're too far in.
Like at first I was thinking, all right, well, maybe they're staying in to make sure that it can be as safe as possible, that for the safety of the people that will be on this ship. And McCallum, he quit as soon as he found out the certifications would be gone. And then David, he was sticking around to keep encouraging Stockton as gently as possible to, let's get this safety thing checked. And it got to the point where he needs to put it in writing. And to me, that was protecting the safety of the people that were going to be on board. But Tony's like, nah, we'll just keep quiet.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they're thinking, that he has been so difficult when they try to talk to him that they keep pushing the third party safety, which one, it probably is the best thing to do. But also, okay, finally, there'll be somebody that can stand up to him and say, this is not safe, because he's not listening to anybody else.
There's a reason that it's required. And there's a plan and a reason why Stockton Rush is not getting the third-party certification. He wasn't even getting the first-party certification, and when he did, he fired the guy for putting it in writing. Because now there is a trail, and that's why he came in with the recorder to create another trail, and he tried to make the guy look like an idiot, but I don't think he came up smelling like roses.
No, I don't.
Stockton Rush looked like an angry idiot on that soundbite.
Well, yeah, he just heard him say he wasn't afraid to spend $50,000 to ruin somebody's life. So, yeah, I can see why he would say, I'm just going to stay quiet.
Yeah, I guess that's why Tony was just ready to be quiet, because Stockton, he can buy congressmen, he can do whatever $50,000 gets you. It's crazy. This whole thing, this whole plan wasn't a sound plan, but it was like Stockton was trying to manifest it to work so he could be a big shot. Like, dude, you got to have a quality product. You can't just slap some truck paint on some carbon fiber and all of a sudden you're Jeff Bezos.
He wanted to take a shortcut to fame and notoriety.
Yeah, there's no fast pass for that. Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, Stockton fires Yvette, his lead pilots. What should he do now, Dee? What would make sense? He needs another pilot here within the company.
Yeah, promote your accountant to be the hot pilot.
Dee, that means that we're qualified.
We're
We have
overqualified.
We could be pilots on this sub. You know why it made sense to him? Because he wasn't planning on that dude being the pilot anyway. He wanted to play with the PlayStation controller. At least I got gaming experience. So Emily, that we met at the beginning of this documentary, she is fresh out of college. She's one of these fresh-faced interns, and they're offering OceanGate saying, hey, we'll take you to the Bahamas, and if you do good, we'll hire you full time. How does that sound for a first work trip?
That sounds amazing.
Like the dream. So what are we doing on this? Why are we going to the Bahamas, Dee?
Because they're going to be doing their first deep ocean test.
Gotcha. They've been in the shallow water. So let's see, because we know the Titanic, we need to get down to about 4,200 meters. That's our goal. That's our game plan. So how is this going to work? What are we doing?
Well, he's going to take it. Stockton is going to take it out by himself the first time.
First time by himself, and he's going to record it. So what happens?
Well, there's a lot of popping, cracking.
There's a lot of popping. And we get to 39:38 and it's blah, 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 blah. I'm thinking at that point, do not go to 4,200, you dum-dum. Like, get up. So this is the 39th expedition in the Titan. What happens when Stockton comes back to surface?
He said something about the numbers, the depth that they went. It was like
The 39th dive and 39 depth.
Yep.
So he didn't go farther because he wanted the numbers to all make sense. 39th dive, 39 depth. Why go farther? We reached this. I could have gone a lot farther, but no, let's just make it like good karma. Dude, you're not out here for karma. You are out here safety testing.
He's popping champagne.
He's popping champagne that it was a success. And 39 feet. Might as well call it 4,000. Anyone who doesn't say that's 4,000, they're an ass. Fuck them. So when Stockton says he has a 5-inch penis, are we just rounding up?
Apparently he's rounding up a lot because 4,000 is nowhere near 39. So I can only imagine when he measures other things.
This guy's an ass.
He's a douche.
He's just trying to convince everybody it wasn't a big deal. I could have gone farther if I wanted to, but because it was the 39th trip, I just went to 39. We can round it up. Let's just edit it to 4,039.
His math ain't mathin'.
And he's not thinking about the fact that he's recording this. He is documenting all of this. So
he wants it edited to say that too.
Well, that's fine. You can't edit the original tape, obviously. We are watching it right now. Oh, this guy. Wow. And you know what? He should have pulled out way before 39. There was cracking. There was popping. He didn't care. The guy who put the microphones into the ship, he said Stockton, he really would have been fine without the microphones.
Ridiculous.
So while they're in the Bahamas doing this testing, it's becoming very apparent that these are not going well. In fact, Tony Nielsen, director of engineering, he writes an email and he says, look, I'm concerned because this cracking shouldn't look like this. As you go deeper, it's getting worse and worse. But of course, Stockton, he doesn't care. In fact, Carl Stanley, who is a guy that built his own submarine and is taking people in tours in it out in the Caribbean, he even gave a free week of labor to Stockton Rush to help him build the submersible in exchange for a free ride. So how did that ride go? While he's down in the Bahamas, he calls up his buddy Carl Stanley. And what was Carl Stanley's experience like?
They went over like 12,000 feet. It's cracking. It's amplified. All of these pops and cracks. And as they go deeper, it just gets worse.
Now, does he sign a waiver?
No, he doesn't have to sign a waiver. He's not told of
anything about this before he gets on?
No, he's not been told about anything to be concerned about. Nothing.
Is he even thinking that the cracks are weird? This noises? No.
Yeah.
He is? Because he doesn't know what's going on.
Oh, sorry.
He doesn't know what's going on. And besides, Stockton's probably telling him, well, that's just seasoning the hole. What? Like seasoning the hole?
Is that even a thing?
The snaps are the fibers of it breaking.
I know.
Why would you want broken fibers at all? Why would you want it seasoned? It makes no sense. Now, so Tony Nielsen, he's kind of even worried about Stockton's intelligence at this point. He's saying he doesn't think Stockton really understood the risk.
No, he said he's got this aerospace degree in engineering, but he doesn't think that Stockton really understands the science of it.
It's like he got the degree, but he didn't even understand what he needed to know to get it, which I'm sitting here. I don't have this kind of degree. I'm like, this sounds stupid.
Moron. He's a moron.
But we're listening to what the experts have to say. We're not just going, fuck it. Let's go on a little bit ride. Oh my goodness.
Let's just round.
So when they get back from the Bahamas, they find something. And what do they find in the hole?
Crack.
Oh no, they found a crack. And they decide to see how deep it went.
It was a pretty substantial crack.
Tony Nielsen doesn't like this. At this point, he's not signing off on it. And does that sit well with Stockton?
Well, no, it doesn't.
What happened?
Well, Stockton says that he's had a meeting with, I believe it was some of the board, and that somebody had to have known about that crack.
Somebody's got to go. So, yeah, Tony tries to place the blame on someone else. And he said, 2 people told me, Tony, that you should have known about this. And Tony says, well, I wrote you an email about it. Hello. So yeah, obviously, Tony's the one that's going to go because he's not doing this, right? He's just supposed to sign off on things that look pretty.
And he's not going to question anything because he knows that with $50,000, his life could be ruined too. And he doesn't want that to happen.
He's not going to go tell the board what's going on. He's outsies.
Yeah, he's done.
He's done. Well, as far as jurisdiction, you know that the whistleblower, Lockridge, he went to the U.S. Department of Labor, Occupational Hazards and Safety because he was working for OceanGate. So that makes sense. And they thought he had a pretty good case. He told them, look, this thing isn't classified. It's not insured. It's not just the passengers, but he's got employees on this. He's not providing a safe environment. So that's why he went to the Department of Labor. Now, we need to shut him up. I mean, we need to make sure Lockridge keeps his mouth shut so he can get down to the Titanic. What's the goal here?
So they go and sue him.
Sue him for fraud. Now his green card is at risk. His house is at risk. I mean, I'm assuming he must have some assets above the exemption limits. Okay, this is my lawyer brain thinking. But yeah, he just wants to take this guy for what he's got and shut him up. Now, Emily, one of the from the beginning of the story, she was supposed to be going on a trip to St. John. And 6 days before the trip, Stockton canceled. He said, we need to redo the hole. He didn't say anything specific. He didn't say there was a crack. But at this point, she knows this isn't good. What she's been seeing with the people within the company, this isn't good. So she quits. That's when she's out seas too. So we're trying to get over to the Titanic. We still haven't made it to the Titanic yet. We've been doing all kinds of tests in shallow water and deep water, and people are just quitting left and right. And Stockton just doesn't seem aware at all. There's supposed to be a witness protection program for the Department of Labor for David Lockridge, but they can't protect against retaliation. Basically, Stockton Rush has filed a lawsuit accusing him of fraud and breach of contract. He has every right to pursue those claims. Now, more than likely, I mean, from what we're seeing in this documentary, those look like misleading allegations that he must have been throwing around to whoever, as an attorney, filed this. Appears to be a meritless case. It's really just to intimidate and basically use his big 1% swinging dick to show David Lockridge, you can't mess with me. You can't afford an attorney to defend this. You're going to need to be quiet, or, well, you're going to end up with a lawsuit and either lose your house paying for counsel or lose your house to me when I have a default judgment against you. He puts him in a rock and a hard place situation. I guess that's how the 50,000 can ruin someone's life.
I just feel like, David he's trying to save people's lives. He's on a mission, I think, to do that. So I don't know if it makes that big a difference to him or not.
Now, he's either lying to this attorney or this attorney is doing something unethical. My bet is he believes his own bullshit. He believes his own story. And he went to that attorney and said, look, he broke the contract this way. He committed fraud this way, without letting them know all the details, because he knows that David can afford somebody to go and defend him.
Yeah.
His attorney will never know the details. It's BS.
Jerk.
Little Emily, fresh out of college, an intern. She got to go to the Bahamas. She didn't go to St. John because 6 days before, Tony Nielsen just ruined everybody's plans and had to come out and say he was worried in an email. And then Stockton had to say, all right, we got to take a pause. We got to redo this whole situation, or, glue it together better or something. So Emily's trip to St. John was canceled, but now we need more people because everyone's quitting. So we've got a new director of engineering and a brand new full-time employee. Emily, why don't you be a director under this company as well? We don't need some old guy to be the face of a company. Let's make it a young woman. That's what we really want. But you know what? That's all she is. She's the face of the company because Stockton is doing everything and just has faces there. That's literally what anybody is doing, whether it's the old guy you hired or Emily.
Yeah. Every person working there is either a face or a title, and that's it. That's it.
They're just faces. Stockton is doing this whole thing himself. And Emily, well, what is in her title? She's going to be a pilot, but who's going to be playing with that PlayStation controller?
We know it's going to be Stockton. He can't let anybody else drive.
It doesn't even matter if you're a licensed pilot that has credentials. He's not going to be driving this game. All right. So Emily, hey, I'm getting permitted. I get a raise, right?
No, that's lateral.
Lateral move. Not getting anything else. Why don't you quit?
COVID has now started, and she's watching her friends. Yep, she's watching her friends get laid off left and right, and she's like, "Hey, at least I've got a job."
Rock in a hard place. But COVID, we're going to have delays now too, because if you remember, even like the auto industry was having trouble getting parts.
Remember that the chips or something, especially for trucks.
What are we going to do to save money? The company is not going to be making profit anytime soon. We're still reconfiguring this new hull now that, that jerk put that email out there saying that the other one wasn't safe. So what do you do?
Start laying people off and you buy cheaper products.
So who do we lay off? Like the pretend pilot?
No.
Who are we laying off?
I believe they lay off some of their engineers.
Oh, they're real engineers.
Yeah.
Not the pretend pilot, the real engineers.
The real engineers.
Yeah, they sure do. And, we still got to do some testing. So let's make some little miniature submarines, take the submersibles down with this new carbon fiber with a company that they've got the name. They are the top of the carbon fiber game They haven't built a submersible before, but they know their carbon fibers. How's this new hull project going with the test with our little mini subs?
It doesn't pass any of the tests.
It doesn't even get to 3,000 feet before it explodes.
But he doesn't care.
Who cares?
He goes ahead and he starts building the hull with the carbon.
Let's keep using this cheap carbon material. We'll get it to work at some point. All right. So we've had 3 failed mini sub tests. We'll go do another mini sub, right? We'll get this right. This isn't working. We're going to figure it out, right?
No, not at all.
What do you mean?
This guy is just going to go ahead and build a full size.
Wait, we're not going to make sure it works on the little model first?
No, we don't need to do that. We're just going to go ahead and build a full size.
But when that full size one implodes, I mean, that's going to cost even more money because you're using more materials.
Or worse.
So I don't understand. I don't think he cares. He just wants to get to the Titanic.
Yeah.
But it's not even getting to 3,000 feet. It doesn't even make logical sense.
No, it doesn't. This has almost become I would say it definitely has become an obsession.
And Emily, fresh-faced Emily, right out of college, brand new engineering project manager and pilot. Look, she's not being fooled by this either. This doesn't make sense to her. She's outseas. She's gone. There's her 2 weeks notice. Peace. She wasn't going to be bolting anybody into that hole.
And a lot of her coworkers said the same thing. They weren't going to be bolting anybody in either.
People were leaving, and she tracked the news. She just hoped people wouldn't go.
So David Pogg with CBS Sunday Morning, he gets an email from Stockton. Says, come on out and see our submarine.
Yeah, he wants some press.
David doesn't think there's anything wrong with this. He's going to be safe. He's just wanting some press.
Yeah, we're not going to put a reporter on there and have the thing implode. This has got to be safe, right?
Exactly.
I don't know. To be fair, maybe Stockton Rush was thinking, well, correspondents go out there in the war fields, so they put themselves in dangerous situations. What's different? So our reporter goes into this knowing that it's been 2 summers that they've been doing expeditions. This is the second one. And in those 2 summers, there have been 50 attempts to get down to the Titanic. So 5 expeditions per summer, 5 chances per expedition to go down. 2 summers, you got 50 chances. 9 of them have made it. That's not great statistically.
No, those are not favorable odds.
It's like a 20% chance you're not going to have a successful mission. The reporter felt safe.
Yeah. He knew that they had a rule of 3. So if 3 things went wrong, they would come back up to the surface.
It's funny though, because I didn't really see that rule of 3 when I was hearing crackety crack, crack, crack. Like, is it 3 cracks? Well, obviously it's not 3 cracks. The lights have to go out. You have to hear a crack and one of your oxygen tanks blow. Like, 3 in what way? Because I'm definitely hearing more than 3 cracks. And at this point, the documentary asks something that I asked pretty early on. Why is P.H. Nargile here? He was the French commander in the Navy. He was a Titanic fanatic. He loved the Titanic. But what was his role here? It was just to lend his name to a project that was questionable. He was okay with that.
Yeah, he said that he had lived his life, and if he could promote safety for these expeditions, he was willing to do that.
What's he doing to promote safety?
I don't know.
I think he's just excited that he gets to go for free rides on the Titan.
They have said that all of these people going down, it's just become almost cult-like.
They all just really believe in what they're doing. Nobody's died yet. It's been 2 years. What's the chances? PH, the name sounds good, but he's not having to pay $100,000, $150,000, whatever they were charging at this point for expeditions. And he's gone on 37 of them. He loves the Titanic, more bang for his buck. He's an old guy. If something happens to him, who cares? It wasn't really about safety, was it?
No, not for him, I don't think. He was just
scratching his itch for the Titanic.
Yeah. And the news anchor from CBS Sunday Morning, he airs his trip where he went on the expedition.
Share the submersible with the world.
Everybody's seeing this. It must be safe. It must be fine. And
it's him that press coverage that he wanted.
He starts getting calls from people wanting to go on the trips.
I mean, to be fair, if you're asking, why would this guy that want press and is already independently wealthy, why would he lie to us about safety? Why wouldn't this be safe if this is going to be international press? The answer that they weren't expecting is he only cared about getting that big swinging deck. That was it.
Yeah. But ironically, he is on a lot of these missions. And I think that probably also, when people would see that, would think that there was less risk because he's going himself.
And he has a degree in engineering, even though everybody working with him is like, he seems like he was cheating on those tests because he doesn't know what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't appreciate the risk. And channel surfers, welcome back to Charleston, y'all. I see our beautiful skyline. I actually can see where Liz works from this picture. And Dee's like, hey, Liz.
What I could see. Hey, Liz.
We see where you work in this skyline photo. So yeah, I think this is the prettiest part. I might be a little bit biased, but I think Charleston's gorgeous. Anyway,
It is a beautiful city.
The real unsung hero is David Lockridge. And kind of coincidentally, if you are going to where these hearings are being held downtown and you're coming in from the West Ashley side, there is a road called Lockridge Boulevard. So every time I hear Lockridge, I think about Lockridge Boulevard. So he's in Charleston and there's a main road right there across from the marina. It like goes alongside the water and it has his name on it.
Poetic.
Actually, my son was born right off Lockridge Boulevard at MUSC Children's Hospital. So yeah, Lockridge, he was doing what we were worried would happen. He was putting his own money into defending this lawsuit. He wasn't going to let go of his professional standards. Well, his finances weren't the only concern. The government, the Department of Labor, they only have so many resources. And they had 11 cases that were older than his. So they couldn't keep pushing forward. And he's just losing money defending this suit. He doesn't have a choice. Authorities are unable to help him. He has drained all of his assets. He's got to walk away. He's got to drop the complaint to settle this frivolous lawsuit.
Bad.
He tried. And now he's in Charleston in 2024. And he's telling that. He's telling that to the investigator. I was worried. I tried to tell, but we were limited. We were limited by our resources. So we really cracked this case on Dive 80. Dive 80, they're ascending and they're significant crack. And after that, statistics changed.
Yeah, the monitoring system is showing drastic changes from that dive forward.
They're getting worse. I mean, you see like a flat line with just little spikes every once in a while on Dive 80. What happens on 81 and 82?
It just keeps going up and up.
It's like constant cracking, constant.
It looked like
it just kept getting more and more.
It just looked like a thick line that was just continuous across
to get
there.
Thicker for each dive. So how do we deal with this? Well, let's just discount this sound. There's silly metrics. And how do you do this? Well, PH, he's been on a lot of titanium subs, and any deep diving sub has cracking sounds. Okay, yes, but this logic is not working because titanium subs don't have snapping fibers. There's a big difference here.
They're not made of strings.
This is the most insane logical argument. You're hearing strings breaking. You know you're hearing strings breaking. So who cares what the titanium subs who don't have strings breaking do?
Yeah.
That's not what is happening.
No, you literally have a self-monitoring system that is telling you something is definitely wrong, and you're ignoring it.
And we're going from this little line on 80 before they hear the crack, where you just see a very like little cracks, big crack, little cracks, big crack, to like consistent medium cracks, big crack, consistent medium cracks, big crack, to bigger cracks, huge crack, bigger cracks, huge crack. It's like you're watching the ship fall apart with your own, ears if it's the sound monitoring, but everything cracks.
It's fine.
It's fine. It's just, it happens on almost any ship. And obviously it would be louder and louder every time you go down on any ship. Sorry, what?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you think that data tells you something? Okay, great. You might have cracks on ships, but if you hear this big crack and then the next time you get more and more cracks. And then the next time you get even more and more cracks. And this hasn't been in any of your other data in 80 dives. This is inconsistent. Hello, something's wrong.
This is a huge red flag.
Lizzie, you see red flags. You know what David sees? He sees a pretty little bouquet that he twisted out of red flags. So you know that head of engineering that came in after they said au revoir to Tony?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone too. Mm-hmm.
They're just running them all off.
What'd they do this time?
They wouldn't listen to him either.
Well, they didn't have the money to listen to him. They had no choice but to freeze that sub like a popsicle outside because they couldn't bring it home and put it in storage.
So it's sitting in sub-zero temperatures, which
is snapping those fibers.
Stupid.
And there's no way for anybody to check it because they can't get it back home. So season 3, and you've had your whole engineering department quit over and over and over again. But you know what? You have a degree from Princeton in engineering, so it's fine. It's fine. Who cares? And you know, this French guy, he believes in it. He likes the Titanic. He's an idiot.
I guess that's all that matters. This is so frustrating for me to watch. It was so stupid, so pointless. Like, these people didn't have to die.
It's like this guy is so dumb. He was a mediocre student. He was a mediocre student who got an Ivy League degree and then ignored every repeated expert in the same field telling him no, because he thought he just knew better than them. He thought, I'm an explorer in this field. From the beginning, I was thinking this sounds like a cult, and they did say toward the end of the episode that, yeah, this reminds them of a cult as well. He's a cult leader. It's just, the bad thing is people are believing him because of credential. He is using this degree where he obviously cheated on tests. At this point, I'm convinced, to just get his way. It's just sick.
Yeah.
Not to speak ill of the dead. Gross.
Right. But he's using other people's credentials too.
Yeah. So in 2022, we've got this loud crack. Let's keep going. Let's keep telling people. Let's tell the world about this. Let's get an influencer on board. We've got Jake Kohler.
Yeah, he's a YouTuber.
He's a tuber. Scuba tuber.
Treasure hunter.
And he is really excited to go on this. Now, he didn't know that it hadn't done a successful dive yet this season. And it's not like they were in calm water.
It was not a good time of year with the weather, the water.
What did it look like?
It looked like winter to me. They said it was spring, but...
Yeah, but as far as like on the ship, what did it look like when
they're rolling around? Their chairs are sliding from one end to the other of the rooms. I mean, it's a hot mess.
It's a mess. So if your dinner table is slamming up into the wall, what do you think is going to happen to this carbon fiber submersible?
Yeah, it's probably not going to do too well in that kind of water.
And when he comes up to it, when they first approach it, the carbon fiber door is open. Did you see it flapping in the wind?
It looked like just a fiberglass hood almost on something. I'm like, that looks so flimsy. I would have been so afraid right then.
I know, but Jake, he's just like, we're winging it. Dang right you are. I think he's got survivor's guilt. So they didn't make it all the way down. They did have to cancel it. What was that journey like?
He said there was a lot of condensation on the inside of it, which I thought was weird.
So strange. And he said his feet were really cold. So obviously this isn't insulated very well.
No, I didn't get that impression from what he was saying.
But a few days later, he's looking at the place that his feet were resting on the ocean floor after it imploded, and he's crying. He feels bad for these people that lost their lives, and he can't help but wonder.
Yeah, I can see where he might have survivor's guilt.
He wonders, why wasn't it me? I keep trying to.
So this is going to be the first and the final dive of the season.
How poetic.
Yes. And they're all excited. They're getting in there.
Oh, wait, go see my Titanic.
I know. But an hour and a half later, they lose all communication with the submersive.
It's almost like, Liz, where did they go? Where are you, Liz? You're like the crew of the submersive.
Exactly.
Although 16 minutes later, we don't usually hear from you.
16 minutes after this, a recording device about 900 miles away from where the Titanic is hears this massive explosive sound.
Yeah, we're not talking about little crickly cracks anymore.
No,
We're talking about boom, boom. And then there's days without communication and the world is watching, which that's what happens when we lose communication with Liz. It's just days before we hear from her.
Mhm.
Although I did hear from her last night, but she's good. She's alive. It's okay, guys. We don't need to send out a rescue mission. She is good.
And Mark Harris with The Wired, he's trying to talk to some of these ex-employees and employees that were
Got him
working
an
there.
international news story with everything.
He's
So
trying.
these Titan employees, let's see what they say. Speak up, guys. Speak up.
None of them will talk to him
Why not?
until they find out that Stockton is dead.
Stockton is a big, scary guy with a big swinging penis. And, ooh, but once he's dead, you know, he exploded. Hey, he imploded. Let's talk now.
Mm-hmm.
Really goes to show you what kind of operation this guy was running.
Well, we said it was toxic. We said
$50,000 will sink you. You'll get sued frivolously. What a piece of crap.
yeah, one of the employees or ex-employees even had 2 phones. 2 phones.
Why's he got two?
Because
One,
he didn't,
because he's got, that affair and he don't want his wife to know about it.
he didn't want Stockton to be able to get a hold of him.
Oh, it's because of Stockton. What? This dude is scary.
So they were talking to the engineer.
Tony.
Yeah. And they asked him, they were trying to find out what the problems were with this. And he was like, look, it wasn't the fact that it wasn't classified. It wasn't the safety issues. It was the fact that Stockton associated himself personally with this project, this Titan.
Essentially, he was the project. And just like we said, the problem here was ego. Whenever someone said something was wrong, he took that as a hit to his ego. It's a culture crisis.
Yeah, he took it as a personal criticism of him. Yes.
Stockton equals submersible. You attacked submersible. You attacked him in this noble adventure. Amazing. And the documentary ends much like where we started. We've got pictures of those lost in the submersible, as well as their birth dates and death dates. We see Shazada. And we end much like we started, with pictures of those that lost their lives on the Titan submersible that day in 2023. And very last picture we see is Stockton Rush, who leaves us with a little bit of knowledge. He says, I don't want to die. This is going to fail before I let anyone die. How ironic is that?
He actually said nobody was going to die on his watch.
But what we learned from this documentary is he was going to die before he would fail.
And he did. Both.
Died and failed.
He died and it failed.
What failed? I thought this was a success. He got exactly what he wanted.
How is it a success?
Because all he wanted was fame, and he got that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the kind of fame that he wants or not.
I don't think he cared. He ignored every person he paid to tell him what to do. Every step of the way. He just wanted people to know about his creation, regardless of whether it was a good creation. This was all about him. This was all about his ego. This was all about his fame. That was it.
Wow.
He succeeded, but he died before he succeeded because he wasn't famous until everything imploded. That's the irony there. This wasn't to bring affordable submarine missions to everybody. At no point was this an affordable submarine mission for anybody except the 1%. This wasn't about making sure that people were safe. If we're going to make it cheaper, it's got to be safe too. You can't just make it cheaper. He didn't care about any of that. All Stockton Rush wanted was to be well known, like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, to be this inventor.
I was getting ready to say, we watched this documentary. I remember seeing this story in the news, but if someone yesterday had asked me who Stockton Rush was, I would not have been able to say who he was.
I think I would have remembered. The name would have at least rung a bell. But then again, it's not a very common name. So
yeah, that's true.
But I didn't know all of this. This was very eye-opening. That was a great documentary. It it told a story. And the story it told is that ego is dangerous.
It'd make you afraid to get on anything anymore. In anything, on anything, drive anything, fly in anything. I mean, it just makes me question anything that I would do.
When you have somebody that is super obsessed with their ego and they've got people following them and they're ignoring their advisors, you've got a deadly situation. This is exactly what happened here on the submersible. Well, that was a wild ride.
I enjoyed it.
What do you think? Any final words?
I think I said mine already. I'm going to be afraid to do just about anything or get anything.
You ain't scared. You're good. Oh, that was a wild ride through reality TV land. That was a great documentary. Channel surfers, let us know what you think. Comment in our YouTube comments. Come over to our Facebook. Make sure that you like and subscribe so you can see our content that drops. On Saturday, we will have the full episode of Dateline, the sliding glass door. Dee and I were unable to track down Liz, so we just finished it up ourselves, and we'll be dropping that on Saturday. And then on Tuesday, we'll be back with 90 Day Hunt for Love. Thanks for watching with us. Bye, Channel Surfers.
Let's ride.